Hi everyone, thanks for joining. This is Renee. I thought I'd just share a couple photos of my recent trip to North Conway, New Hampshire. You can skip ahead to where this book chat starts if you want, but we flew into Portland, Maine, which is where this picture was taken of this sculpture that I just couldn't pass up. We stayed at an Airbnb in the neighborhood of around Cathedral Ledge, which is just a beautiful climbing area. It's the rock that you see in the photo, but the ice climbing is down below. And the Scarecrow Pub and Grill is a funny sign that we always look for when we're in town, driving through the quaint town of North Conway. And I don't know whether it's scary or funny, maybe both, but it's being renovated, so it was fun to see that it's still there. And we had a wonderful time. I don't have a picture here of Tuckerman's Ravine, but we went up Mount Washington via Tuckerman's Ravine, which was a really fun and long process. But Mount Willard is the photos that in the last couple of photos, and it is just a wonderful place to be. I was very happy to spend some time there. And now the reading update. Hi everyone. I'm glad to be here making a video. Besides that little chat that I did, I feel like it's been a while since I've been sitting here talking about books. Let's get into it. When I was away, I had with me an e-reader that I was trying out. I took with me on that e-reader The House of Mirth by Edith Wharton, which I finished when I got back. I forgot to mention, it's raining so hard right now. It is a beautiful spring-like rain, so that's fantastic. And Suki can barely see her little body, is sleeping. Anyway, Edith Wharton. I have to say, once again, reading a book when I'm on a trip where I'm tired, right before I'm going to bed, I'm reading and I'm tired. And just like when I was reading The Little Friend when I was in Colorado by Donna Tartt, I was confused by some of this plot. And I don't know if that's me, and I'm just not able to concentrate that much. But in the end, I really didn't care. I got some of the people mixed up. This is a story about Lily Bart, the main character in high society New York City. And would it be... It was published in 1905, so we've got to imagine this is in the very late 1800s, very beginning of 20th century. And she's not of high society, but she's able to work her way in as a young woman who is marriageable, although she's 29 now, so she's an absolute spinster. According to this story, well beyond when she should have gotten married. The story implies that she could have, but she hasn't. She is one of those people that likes to shoot above her weight and feels like there's somebody better and somebody that she's truly in love with. She's had marriage offers, it seems, that are implied anyway, and that she hasn't truly been in love with someone, and that's not necessary, in this society. Just getting an offer and being able to be taken care of and a somewhat legitimate part of this society would be enough, but she hasn't done that. And we watch her really go from just surviving with a little bit of an allowance from an aunt, I believe. I don't want to say making a mistake, but she is playing within a set of roles where if you're a single young woman and a married woman would like you to be around her. Fantastic for company, as her little pet. Great. Or another situation is that a married woman may want you to be a tiny distraction for her husband because she wants to pursue something that involves money that the husband isn't maybe entirely on board with or not on board with at all. And if you play your cards right, you can be a little distraction for her sake, and she loves that, and she'll take care of you. I found that interesting, but she gets herself in one of these situations. It's not considered unusual. Again, if you play your cards right, you can be a little bit of a flirt, and something happens where society would be a little like outraged because maybe her and this husband were out too late, or something like that. That's where I wasn't clear, but I understood that she would be banished from that society, and she was. And we see her really take a fall, like a real serious fall. And she does that. Like, she knows how to survive. She's a survivor. I really liked the way that Lily Bart was drawn in this book. One of the reasons I feel like it was confusing is that it's written in this very formal voice, and where I felt like, I don't recall that The Age of Innocence, a book that I read in December, my first Edith Wharton, was written like that. But Age of Innocence was written quite a while after this one. She considers her first novel. So yeah, I wonder if I would have struggled as much with it had I not been trying to read it at night when I was tired. But I liked it. I have to say, I mean, now that I've sat with it for a while, I think I like it as much as The Age of Innocence. They are, like, to me, they are completely different books, just because of the style of writing is so different. Let me know your thoughts, because I know a lot of you talked about The House of Mirth and how much you enjoyed it. I wonder what your thoughts are when you compare it to The Age of Innocence, if you've read that. When I talked about upcoming books that I had looked at, from some independent presses that were interesting to me, I mentioned Danielle Dutton's upcoming book, Prairie Art Dresses. I don't recall when that comes out in 2024, but I will list it here for you as a reminder. But often when I've identified an author who has an upcoming book, but I haven't read the author, I will go back to a book that the author has written, a backlisted book, to kind of warm me up for the book that's coming. So I did that. I did that with Danielle Dutton. Danielle Dutton is married to another author, Martin Riker, who is the author of the most recent, the guest lecturer, founders of the beloved the Dorothy Project, which is a publishing project, and where one of my all-time favorite books comes from, Amina Kane's A Horse at Night on Writing. So back in like 2000, 10, Danielle Dutton had this book published called Sprawl. And isn't this the most delightful shaped book? Just to give you an idea, let me see if I'll be talking about, this is an NYRB. Just to give you an idea of how square this book is. It's so delightfully shaped. And this is actually done by Siglio Press in 2010. Now, this was republished in 2018. If you look this book up now, you'll see you may see it in another cover, because it was republished by Wave Books, which is like a whole other rabbit hole that I went down when I looked up Wave Books. So it was interesting to do that. This is a hard book to talk about, and I really enjoyed it. I read it over a period of time in bits and pieces. I think it's the kind of book that that I felt like I got more of an experience out of when I did that, because it has no paragraphs and it's just solid pages of writing. And it's to say it's a stream of consciousness about, is it an unnamed narrator? It says it chronicles the mercurial inner life of one suburban woman with vertiginous energy and a deadpan eye. That really nails it. The narrator records the seeming uniformity of her world. I don't want to compare it. So to compare it to I've read a few pages of that book and I feel like this, so I don't know how they compare, but just to give you a sense, I think this one, it's like delightfully deceiving. You're thinking, oh, okay, just like run-on thoughts about absolutely everything in the suburbs. But this kind of exercise where you put very disparate things against the other, and you're observing outside and inside the house and interiority, and it's just a woman saying these things on the pages. It's so expertly, it has to be so expertly done, right? Because you have to know what the right cadence is and the moods and the rhythm of that, and when to like throw in the unexpected thing about their sex lives, or like, it takes such talent to do that. She's displayed an incredible and unique curiosity, specificity, and sensibility from details. She makes entire worlds. Kate Zambrino says it's calling to mind the domestic surrealism of another poet of the everyday, Lydia Davis, and also the bizarre eroticism of Diane Williams. Let me give you an example. It's true, I look stunning in particular colors, such as ivy, peach, and azalea. I rub my nightgown against my breasts and thighs. Dear Mrs. Flick, welcome. If you don't already know it, you soon will. In this place, an alarm clock is going off every minute. People buy this thing or that. People seem to fit into their clothes. If you know anything about it, Mrs. Flick, you'll know that this place has streets like Cherry, Princeton, Sacagawea, and School. It reminds me of paintings of human beings who sit at formica tables with crumpled paper napkins and mugs of coffee, or people who sit down to dinners of soup, bread, and wine. Rest assured I could feed at least 20 people of consequence on the dinners I give. It's a custom here, Mrs. Flick, and there's no use fighting it. I suggest you initiate a period of dinner making calmly for approximately 40 years. I had such a good time. I had such a good time reading and then also thinking about the project of creating this book and how much work it would take. So yeah, Sprawl by Danielle Dutton to warm me up for another book of hers that's coming. So speaking of like craft and putting together something that just glides along like that. I also coincidentally read recently of Sheila Heti's Alphabetical Diaries. If you've read anything about this book or listened to a few interviews that she's done recently, and by far the one with Jaylen from The Bar in the Bookcase is amazing. You have to listen to that interview. Jaylen is done it again. This is 10 years of Sheila Heti's journals, diaries that she keeps. She took every sentence and loaded into each sentence individually into an Excel spreadsheet, like from like 2005 to 2014, something like that. She then alphabetized the sentences by the first word. So the beginning of the book starts with sentences that begin with the word A, such as, A book about how difficult it is to change, why we don't want to, and what's going on in our brain. A book can be about more than one thing, like a kaleidoscope. It can have many things that coalesce into one thing, different strands of a story, the attempt to do several, many more than one thing at a time, since a book is kept together by its binding. A book, a book, a book. That's where the first sentences start. And then the sentences are alphabetized by the first word and then the second word. So then after all the sentences that she put together, starting with A, and then the next sentence was book, it starts a bunch. A bunch of us met to have dinner that night, but I left and walked off by myself. What you don't see in the construction of the chapters, which are the letters of the alphabet, is the year in which these sentences were written. And it's my understanding, if I'm remembering it correctly, from the earliest years to the most current years. So, I mean, she just kept everything in order. What she did, though, is because it was like hundreds of thousands of sentences, these are 60,000 sentences, or 60,000 words, whatever. I might be getting that number mixed up. But there's editing involved because she didn't keep every sentence. And there were, she had to read the entire book from start to finish over and over and over to get the rhythm and the cadence. She just had to delete all those sentences in between because she liked one sentence abutted up to right next to another one. And so that's how I understood that these are all just from the earliest to the latest and alphabetized. So you could imagine the words in your own diaries, the first word of a sentence that would appear a lot in the diary, right? So A and I wondered which ones would show up. In B, there aren't many of the same first words. In C, same thing. The first word is calculate, call, can. A lot of times in a diary, you ask yourself a question. Can we wait until New Year's Eve, or should we start it up right away? Can you take life seriously and exhibit in yourself the characteristics you most admire about him? That is, make your brain think about the things you value and find most interesting to think about. Just control your brain, which in my case means not thinking about men and love and sex so much, or about seduction and beauty. Had H. So you could imagine in your own journal, if you're just writing down things that you want to write down. I'm a journal keeper, so it's not so much a diary, but you tend to, sometimes sentences are shortened and you're just speaking in your own style. So you can imagine sentences starting with had a dream the night before I bought this new bed that the reason I was short and it stayed short was because I was still sleeping in my childhood bed. It sounds like it might be tedious. I also read this in just bits and pieces. I felt like it was more enjoyable that way to really, I've had this out from the library quite a while because I just really took my time and just kept opening it. Of course, sentences starting with I are a large part of this book, and it's interesting to see people's names show up. U is the smallest chapter. I will not reveal Z. That's for you to discover. But this is a masterpiece of an idea. It takes such art and control and editing mastery to put together a project like this. I'm going to call it a project because that's what it is to me. And it's not a memoir. It's not anything. It's its own thing. I would, this is a book that I would actually own a copy of because, I don't know, it is memoir-like, isn't it? Because it is journals. It's like publishing your own journals, except it almost would seem maddening because you don't know what year a sentence is from, but I don't know. You can learn about a person through this method. And I found it fascinating. I couldn't wait to read one sentence after the other to see how they were going to play. and you just never knew it was coming. It's almost like she evolves through a chapter, if you think about it. Really, this is not going to be for everybody. That is for sure. But don't try reading it like a regular book either, is my advice. So really, like, two very interesting writing projects. What am I reading? I'm in one of those dead zones where I haven't really started anything other than just this, the second Alfred Hayes that I wanted to read this year, which is called In Love. This is a story about a man who's almost 40, sitting in a bar. He's sitting there talking to somebody who's like 24 years old, this young woman, and he starts recounting this relationship he's had with this other young woman. And that's really, so far, halfway through what this book is about. I have to say, I like the other book better so far, Your Face for the World to See. Is that what it's called? Because it is about a man having a relationship with a younger woman, My Face for the World to See. There were so many places where I put sticky notes in the pages because the writing, the dialogue was extraordinary to me. I'd never read anything quite like that voice. I'm not finding that in here though. So, but I'm only halfway through, so we'll see. So I'm going to wrap that up here because I've just been rambling for quite a while. The next time we meet, I will talk about the books. I'll do a little bit of a book haul because I picked up a few books in my used bookstore jaunt in Portland, Maine before we got on the... Thanks for hanging in there with me. All right, we have Sheila Heti, Danielle Dutton, Edith Wharton, and I look forward to continuing the conversation in the comments with all of you. Thanks.